So the way that this beanie will be constructed is we're going to make a flat panel in the row, and here's the part that's going to be the flat panel. And then when we're done sewing it up, we're going to add some decreasing rounds at the crown and some rounds at the bottom for the band. So that is how this hat will be constructed, and I wanted to show you. I also made this one using a slightly bulkier yarn. They're both size 6 yarns, but this one has way more bulk, and I wanted to show you the difference in the sizes of the hats. So I have made this by concept. I recommend using a slightly bigger hook if you're using a thinner yarn, and a smaller hook if you're using a bulkier yarn, which I know is kind of backwards from what we usually do, but it just makes such a huge hat. And you're definitely going to want to go by measurements and not my stitch counts here. I'll be using Lion Brand's Respun Thick and Quick, which is this recycled polyester. It says it's a super bulky size 6, but this one is actually less bulky than their Woolease Thick and Quick version. And I will be using this 10mm hook for this particular hat. You could also use a 9mm hook. So you're going to chain in multiples of 2 until it measures 7.5 inches. And it's very important that you go by the measurement and not my stitch counts. In this pattern, it matters more that you meet the measurements. So my chain was 16, but you do whatever you need to do in order to get 7.5 inches. So I'm going to measure it here and show you that it's exactly 7.5 inches in length, or about 19 centimeters. For row 1, we are going to half double crochet in the second chain from your hook and in each stitch across. At the end of this row, you should have 15 half double crochet. For row 2, we will chain 1 and turn. Now for this row, we are going to be working in the third loops only. So let me show you. Here in the back is the back loop. Here is the front loop. And if you turn it, there's a parallel loop right here. And this is the third loop. It should be facing you. So we are going to be working a single crochet in the third loop in each stitch across. So just continue making one single crochet in the third loop across, and I'll meet you at the end. You should have 15 single crochet. And the ribbed side is the front side of the hat, so that'll be the front of our work there. For row 3, we're going to turn and we're going to begin our star stitch pattern. So to do that, we're going to chain 3, and we will be working into our turning chain, which is unusual. We will be working in the second and the third chain stitches. We're going to insert our hook into the second chain, pull up a loop. Insert our hook into the third chain, pull up a loop. And now we are going to insert our hook into the next 3 stitches of our row and pull up a loop. So you should have 6 loops on your hook, so be sure to stop and count and make sure you have 6 loops. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 6 of those loops. Now we're going to chain 1, and this will just close our star stitch. Now we are going to insert our hook into that chain 1 and pull up a loop. Insert it between the bars of the last 2 loops that we pulled up in our last star stitch here. So I wanted to show you. So right between those 2 loops there. So insert your hook there and pull up a loop. Then insert your hook into the stitch of the row where we pulled up our last loop and our last star stitch. So right here. And also in the next 2 stitches of the row. Again, you should have 6 loops on your hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops. And you're going to chain 1 to close the star. And you're just going to repeat this all the way across the row. So insert your hook into the chain 1 stitch, pull up a loop. Insert your hook between the last 2 loops of the last star stitch, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the stitch of the row where we pulled up our last loop in our last star stitch, so right here, and pull up a loop. And then into the next 2 stitches of the row and pull up a loop. You should have 6 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 6 loops. Chain 1 to close your star. And this is what it should look like. And you're just going to repeat this process all the way across. And you should have 7 star stitches when you're done. At the very end, we're going to put 1 more half double crochet in the last stitch. And that should give us our 15 stitches. Now look at your work and just pay attention to where those chain 1 stitches are, because we're going to be working into them in the next row. So chain 1 and turn. We're going to put 2 half double crochet in every chain 1 space of the star stitches below. So technically you're going to be skipping a stitch. So you're going to put 2 half doubles, skip a stitch, 2 half doubles, skip a stitch. And you should be placing your half doubles in the chain 1 of each star stitch. So go ahead and put 2 half doubles in the next chain 1 space. You're going to technically be skipping a stitch and put 2 half doubles in the next chain 1 space. Skip a stitch, 2 half doubles in the next chain 1 space. You're just going to continue to repeat this all the way across. Once you have put 2 half doubles in every chain 1 space, you're going to have 1 stitch left over, and you're going to want to make 1 more half double in that stitch. And you should have 15 half doubles at the end of this row, so be sure to stop and count. This is the back of our work here. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Now for row 5, we're simply just going to make 1 half double crochet in every stitch across. You should have 15 half doubles at the end of this row. Now you are simply just going to repeat rows 2 through 5 over and over. So row 2 is when we worked in the 3rd loop. Then we did the star stitch, and a row of half doubles. You want to end on a row 4 repeat and then go until it measures about between 18 and 19 inches long. And I do have the repeats in the description box. So I did do a total of 7 repeats ending on a row 4 repeat. And my panel measures 18.5 inches. And you want to also make sure that your panel is 7 inches wide because it will stretch further, so you don't want to do that. Then you're going to leave yourself a long tail and then fasten off. We're going to thread that tail onto a yarn needle and fold your piece so that the wrong sides are together, just like I'm showing you here. And you're going to line up the stitches of your first and last rows. And you want the right side of your piece facing you. Now we're going to go through just the front loops of the last row that we made, but we're going to go through both loops of the first row. And we're going to just simply whip stitch across in this manner. So you go through the front loop of the last row that we made, which should be the row nearest you, and then under both loops of the first row that we made. And this is going to make the hat seamless. You are not going to be able to tell where this seam is when you look at your finished hat. So that's why I'm going through just the front loops and then both loops, because you will not be able to tell where this seam is if you do it this way. So just repeat that all the way across and I'll meet you at the end. When you get to the end, you should have your beginning and ending tails at the same spot. So I just knot them together and then cut my yarn. And where those tails are is actually going to be the crown of our hat. So go ahead and weave those tails in, but pay attention to where they are because the band will be at the opposite end. So now we're going to join at the level of the crown and we're going to do some decreasing rounds. You want to find the chain one spaces of any star stitch row. So if you're looking here, these are the chain one spaces. So just follow them up and there should be a half double crochet at the end. That's where I'm going to join. I'm going to join right around that half double crochet post. And we're going to chain one and put 2 single crochet around that post. So you're going to have 2 there, and now we're going to find the half doubles that are part of the ribbed row, and we're going to put 2 singles around that half double crochet post. So here's that ribbing that we made. So put 2 singles around that half double. Then we're going to go to that half double that's part of the star stitch row. Essentially, you're going to be putting 2 single crochet around every half double crochet of the rows 3 and 5 repeats. If you made the same number of repeating rows, at the end of this round, you should have 28 single crochet. Again, you should be going by what it measures and not by my stitch counts, so just keep that in mind. So just continue this process all the way around and I will meet you at the end. So now I'm going to join with a slip stitch in my first single crochet. And we're going to continue to decrease. So for round 2, we're going to chain 1, and the first thing we're going to do is single crochet the first 2 stitches together. So that's insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. And then you should have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 3, and that just makes 2 stitches into 1. So now you're going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And you're just going to repeat this process to the end. You're going to single crochet 2 together and then single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So you are essentially decreasing in every 3rd stitch. At the end of this round, you should have 21 singles if you had the same number as I did. Now I'm going to join with a slip stitch, and we're going to do one more round of decreasing. So for round 3, we're going to chain 1, and we're simply just going to skip that first stitch and put a single crochet in the next stitch. We're going to skip the next stitch, single crochet. We're going to repeat that all the way around, skip the next stitch, single crochet, skip the next stitch, single crochet. And for our last single crochet, we're actually going to single crochet into the slip stitch that we joined with because we have an odd number of stitches. And then you're simply going to slip stitch in the first single crochet to join. And you're going to cut your yarn, leaving yourself a long tail. Now we're going to thread our yarn needle on to that tail. And we're going to whip stitch through the front loops only of that very last round. So here is the back loop. Here is the front loop. You're going to take your needle from inner to outer through that front loop in every stitch around. And this is going to cause our hat to be able to be cinched closed. And then you're simply going to pull the tail tightly and then take the tail to the inside and knot it off. Now I do use this tail to sew a pom-pom button onto the inside of my hat to hold my pom-pom in place. It gives the care instructions for the pom-pom because they need to remove it before they wash it. So I'm going to split this tail because it's way too thick to sew with. And since this only had 3 strands, I'm going to use the 2 strands to sew my button on because it'll be a little bit more sturdy. You have to be careful because splitting the yarn makes the strands weaker. And then I just knot it off several times and then twist it around the button and knot it off the other direction several times. Now we're going to add a band at the bottom to clean up this area here and to add just a little more length. I'm going to join in a row 3 half double, just like we did for the crown. Chain 1 and single crochet around that post there. And I'm just going to tell you the concept of how you should be making single crochet around the band. Essentially, you're just going to have 5 single crochet evenly spaced in each 4-row repeat section. And I'm just going to show you how I space mine out. It's very difficult to explain. I will say that when you make the single crochet into the 3rd loop, it leaves a big hole, so skip over that. But otherwise, you're going to put 5 single crochet in each repeating section. So if you look here, I'm showing you, I have 5 single crochet between each ribbed section. So there's 5 singles, and that's what you want in each section between the ribs. And again, I skip over when I work in that 3rd loop because it leaves too big of a gap. So for each repeating section you should have 5 singles. It does not matter if you have the same number of sections as I do. You just want to make sure you have 5 singles evenly spaced in those repeating areas. So just keep doing that all the way around. Now you should be ending in the middle of a section because we joined at the half double at a row 3 repeat. So you need to make sure that you have 2 on that side and 3 on that side. Now we're going to join with what's called an invisible slip stitch. So you're going to take your working yarn to the back. You're going to remove your hook from your working loop. Insert your hook from back to front into that first stitch of the round. Add your loop to your hook and pull it through to the back. That's an invisible slip stitch. Now for round 2, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to work in the back loops only. These are the back loops here. We're going to make 1 single crochet in the back loops only of every stitch around. The reason I'm doing the back loops is because it gives just a little more flexibility to the hat band. So it will fit a wider range of heads if you do it through the back loops. It also makes the hat band look a little more obvious because it creates a slight ribbing. So just continue doing that all the way around. When you get to the end, you're going to join with an invisible slip stitch. Now because this yarn is a little bit thinner than that other Woolease Thick and Quick, I am going to do one more round, but you should measure it. it needs to measure between 9 and 9.5 inches in length. And you could also just try it on just to make sure that it's fitting your head. But I'm going to do one more round just like the last one. So I chained one and I'm going to put a single crochet through the back loops only in every stitch around. And you can just repeat that last round as many times as you need to in order to get your desired hat length. Then we're going to do an invisible join on the very last round of your hat band. So don't join yet. Go ahead and cut your yarn. Pull your tail all the way through the last stitch. Now we're going to thread our yarn needle onto that tail and going from front to back through both loops of the first stitch, so that right there. And then we're going to go back into the last stitch of the row through the back loop only. And this just makes a completely seamless join. Like you cannot tell where my rows end and begin. But you do need to make sure that you weave that tail in extremely well because you can't really knot it with this thick of yarn. So now you can add your embellishments. I like to add my pom-pom just like this. So I have the elastic kind with the elastic loop. And I add a little piece of yarn to it because it gives the customers a way to remove the pom-pom so they can wash it. And it also helps them to be able to put it back on. Because a lot of people don't have crochet hooks. So this is a way that they can do it if they don't have a crochet hook at their house. So essentially, you just find a hole at the top, anywhere it'll be fine, and then pull it through. And then wrap it around that button, and that will allow them to remove the button for washing. And this just works as like a little tag so that they can get it on and off. But once you do that, you are done. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.